The suite at the Signal Hotel cost more than my entire tuition for the semester. It was the kind of luxury I had only ever seen in movies. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering expanse of Seoul, velvet drapes that pooled on the floor, and a chandelier that looked like it was made of frozen teardrops. I should have been looking at the view. I should have been taking selfies to send to my best friend back in London, screaming about how I had finally made it to my dream destination. Instead, I was staring down at the open suitcase on the massive king-sized bed, and my heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. This wasn't my suitcase. My suitcase was dusty pink, a little scuffed from 3 years of travel, and filled with comfortable jeans, oversized sweaters, and enough skincare products to survive a nuclear winter. This suitcase was black metal, sleek, cold to the touch, and heavy. And it definitely wasn't full of clothes. It was full of cash. Stacks of it. Crisp, tightly bound bundles of Korean won that smelled like ink and power. There was enough money in this bag to buy this hotel, not just rent a room in it. My hands trembled as I reached out, hovering over the bundles, terrified to even touch them. And then I saw it. Resting right on top of the money, gleaming menacingly under the chandelier light, was a silver handgun. I froze. My breath hitched in my throat, turning into a choked gasp. I had taken the wrong bag at Incheon Airport. It was a simple mistake. A stupid, clumsy mistake made in the chaos of arrival, jet lag, and the rush to get to the taxi stand. But this wasn't a simple mistake. This was a death sentence. I had to close it. I had to get it out of my room. I reached for the zipper, my fingers shaking so violently, I couldn't get a grip on the cold metal tab. I needed to call the front desk. No, I needed to call the police. But what if they thought it was mine? Suddenly, the electronic lock on my hotel room door beeped. It wasn't the polite, cheerful beep of a key card being inserted. It was the aggressive, rapid-fire beep of an override code being punched in by someone who knew exactly how to bypass the security. My stomach dropped to the floor. I spun around, clutching the heavy metal suitcase to my chest like a shield, backing away until my legs hit the edge of the bed. The door swung open with a heavy, purposeful thud. Standing in the doorway was a man who looked like he was carved out of ice and sin. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, and his presence filled the doorway, blocking out the light from the hallway. He was wearing a charcoal suit that fit his broad shoulders with military precision, the fabric expensive and dark. His hair was black, swept back from a face that was devastatingly handsome. High cheekbones, a sharp jawline, and lips that were pressed into a thin, lethal line. But it was his eyes that terrified me. They were dark, endless, and cold. They didn't look surprised to see me. They looked furious. He stepped into the room, and the air temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. He let the door click shut behind him, the lock engaging with a sound that felt final. I was trapped. His dark eyes traveled down my body, lingering on my curves, my face, my trembling hands, before snapping back to the suitcase I was clutching. "You have something that belongs to me," he said. His voice was low, vibrating with a danger that made the fine hairs on my arms stand up. "And I don't like it when strangers touch my things." I tried to speak, but my voice betrayed me, coming out as a terrified squeak. I think there's been a mistake." "The only mistake," he said, walking slowly toward me like a panther cornering a deer, "was you opening that bag." He stopped just inches from me. I could smell him now, a heady mix of expensive sandalwood, rain, and the faint metallic scent of cold air. He held out a hand, his palm open, demanding, "Give it to me. Now." I dropped the bag on the bed as if it burned me and backed away, my hands raised in surrender. "I didn't steal it. I swear. I took the wrong bag at Incheon Airport. They look exactly the same. My bag is pink, but it had a black cover on it and—" He didn't answer. He didn't even look at me as I babbled. He just opened the suitcase, checking the contents with precise, efficient movements. He picked up the gun, checked the safety with the ease of someone who had held a weapon 1,000 times, and tucked it into the waistband of his trousers, hidden beneath his suit jacket. Then he looked back at me. The intensity of his gaze pinned me to the floor. "You aren't leaving this room," he murmured. "What?" I gasped. No, you have your bag. I just want mine. My passport is in there. My clothes. I just want to leave." He walked over to the window, pulling the sheer curtain back just an inch to peer down at the street below. His jaw clenched, a muscle feathering in his cheek. "Damn it," he hissed under his breath. He turned back to me, his expression unreadable. "Your bag is gone. The men who were chasing me at the airport? They have it. They probably think you are the courier carrying the money." My knees felt weak, and I sank onto the edge of the armchair. "Men? What men?" "My enemies," he said simply, as if he was talking about the weather. "And right now there are 3 black SUVs parked outside the lobby. They are watching the exits. They are watching the elevators." He walked over to where I was sitting, towering over me. "Listen to me carefully. If you walk out that door, you will not make it to the taxi stand. They will see you. They will see your face. They will think you are working for me. And they will put a bullet in you just to send a message to me." I gasped, a tear finally escaping and rolling down my cheek. "I'm just a tourist. My name is Wendy. I'm a student. I don't do this." Something in his eyes softened just for a fraction of a second. He looked at the tear tracking down my cheek, and his hand twitched at his side, as if he wanted to wipe it away. But he didn't. He was a man made of steel walls, and he wasn't about to let a crying tourist break them down. "I know," he said, his voice harder now, pushing away whatever sympathy he had felt. "That is why you are staying here." "Here?" I looked around the room. It was huge, yes, but there was only one bed. "With you. Unless you prefer the gunman outside," he countered, raising a perfect eyebrow. "I am Kim Min-jun, and until sunrise you are under my protection, whether you like it or not." He turned away from me, taking off his suit jacket and tossing it onto a chair. Underneath, he wore a crisp white dress shirt that strained against his chest muscles as he moved. He loosened his tie, looking exhausted and dangerous. "Go wash your face," Min-jun ordered, pointing toward the bathroom without looking at me. "You look like a mess. And stop crying. Tears annoy me." I glared at him, finding a tiny spark of courage through my fear. "I'm not crying because I'm sad, Mr. Kim. I'm crying because I'm angry. You ruined my vacation." Min-jun stopped. He looked at me, really looked at me, surprised by the sass. A corner of his mouth ticked up in a smirk that shouldn't have been as attractive as it was. "Wash your face," he repeated, softer this time. "We have a long night ahead of us." I marched into the bathroom and locked the door, leaning against the marble sink. I looked at myself in the mirror. My hair was frizzy from the rain, my makeup was smudged, and my eyes were wide with panic. But as I washed my face, splashing cold water on my skin, I realized something else. I was trapped in a luxury hotel room with a Korean crime lord. He had a gun. He had millions in cash. And he had looked at me. He had looked at me like I was the most interesting thing he had seen all year. I dried my face and realized I had a problem. My clothes were soaked from the rain outside the airport. My jeans were heavy and clinging to me uncomfortably. But I had no luggage. I had nothing to change into. I opened the bathroom door a crack. Mr. Kim," called out. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, typing furiously on a phone. He didn't look up. "What?" "My clothes are wet," I said, hugging my arms around myself. "And you have my bag. I don't have anything to wear." He paused. He sighed, a long suffering sound, then stood up and walked to the closet. He pulled out a crisp white button-down shirt, one of his spares, and walked over to the bathroom door. He held it out to me without making eye contact. "Wear this. It's clean." I took the shirt, my fingers brushing against his. His skin was hot, a shock against my cold hands. He pulled back as if he had been burned. "Thank you," I whispered. I closed the door and stripped out of my wet clothes. I put on the shirt. It was huge on me. It smelled like him. That intoxicating sandalwood scent that seemed to fill the entire suite. The hem fell to my mid-thighs, covering everything, but it felt incredibly intimate to be wearing his clothes against my bare skin. I took a deep breath, unlocked the door and stepped back into the bedroom. Min-jun was standing by the minibar, pouring a drink. He turned around when he heard the door open, and he froze. The glass of whiskey stopped halfway to his mouth. His eyes started at my bare feet, traveled up my legs, and landed on the way his shirt hugged my curves. The fabric was slightly sheer under the hotel lights. hinting at the shape of my body underneath. The room went dead silent. The air crackled with a sudden, overwhelming tension. He didn't look cold anymore. He looked hungry. I tugged at the hem of the shirt, suddenly feeling very exposed. It's a little big. Minjun took a slow swallow of his whiskey, his eyes never leaving mine. He set the glass down on the table with a sharp clack. It looks better on you than it ever did on me, he said, his voice rougher than before, deeper. He walked toward me, closing the distance until the heat radiating off his body enveloped me. He didn't touch me, but he stood close enough that I could feel the rise and fall of his chest. You should sit down, he commanded, gesturing to the armchair by the window, away from the bed. Before I forget that I am supposed to be a gentleman. I swallowed hard, my heart hammering against my ribs. Are you a gentleman, Mr. Kim? He leaned down, bringing his face level with mine. His dark eyes searched my face, intense and unreadable. No, he whispered. I am a monster. But for tonight, I will try to be good. 2 hours later, the tension in the room had shifted from terrifying to something confusing. Minjun had ordered room service. I expected him to ignore me, to let me starve while he planned his next move. But he had ordered enough food for a small army. Galbi, spicy stew, endless side dishes. And he insisted I eat first. You are too thin, he said, pushing a plate of marinated beef toward me. Eat. I am not thin, I argued, stabbing a piece of meat with my chopstick. I am thick. There is a difference. He stopped chewing. His eyes darkened, sweeping over me again in that white shirt. Yes, he murmured, his voice dropping an octave. I noticed. I choked on my water, coughing as my face heated up. He didn't smile, but there was a gleam in his eye that suggested he enjoyed flustering me. We ate in silence for a while, the city rain battering against the window. Finally, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I looked at the gun sitting on the bedside table, a constant reminder of the danger we were in. Why do you live like this? I asked softly, looking over your shoulder, carrying millions in cash, waiting for men to break down your door. You're young. You're handsome. You could be anything. Minjun set his glass down. He looked tired, the lines around his eyes deepening. Because the alternative is being weak, he said simply. In my world, you are either the predator or the prey. My father was prey. He died begging for his life. I promised I would never beg. He looked at me, his expression intense. I protect what is mine, Wendy. No matter the cost. And what about me? I whispered, the question slipping out before I could stop it. Am I yours? The air in the room crackled. He opened his mouth to answer, his eyes locked on mine, but before he could speak, a loud boom of thunder shook the building, mixed with the horrifying sound of shattering glass. The lights went out. Total darkness swallowed the room. Get down! Minjun roared. Before I could even process the command, he was there. A hard, heavy body tackling me off the chair and onto the floor. He covered me completely, shielding my body with his own, pressing me into the plush carpet. The sound of suppressed gunfire. Asterisk fut, fut, fut asterisk, tore through the room, bullets shredding the upholstery of the chair I had just been sitting in. Stay here. He hissed into my ear. Do not move. He rolled off me, moving into the darkness like a shadow. I pressed my face into the carpet, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it would explode. I heard the sickening sound of flesh hitting flesh, a grunt of pain, and then 2 loud, echoing gunshots. Then silence. Minjun. I whispered, my voice shaking uncontrollably. It is clear. His voice came from the darkness, breathless and rough. The emergency power is kicking in. The dim emergency lights flickered on, bathing the room in an eerie red glow. The window was shattered, rain blowing into the room. There was a man lying unconscious near the door, dressed in black. And Minjun was standing over him, his chest heaving, the gun in his hand. But there was blood dripping onto the carpet. You're hurt. I scrambled up, rushing toward him, forgetting my fear. There was a dark stain spreading on the white sleeve of his dress shirt, my shirt's twin. A bullet had grazed his arm. It is a scratch, he dismissed, turning away from me. But he winced when he tried to move his arm. Sit down. I ordered, my fear replaced by a sudden surge of adrenaline. I need to clean that. I don't need. Sit down, Minjun. He looked at me, shocked by my tone. And for the first time all night, the ruthless mafia boss obeyed. He sat on the edge of the bed, watching me as I ran to the bathroom and grabbed a towel and the first aid kit I had seen earlier. I knelt between his legs, pressing the towel against his arm to stop the bleeding. Our faces were inches apart. I could feel the heat radiating off him, smell the metallic scent of blood mixed with his cologne. You saved me, I whispered, looking up at him, my hands trembling as I worked. You could have stayed in cover, but you jumped in front of me. I told you, he said, his voice ragged. I protect what is mine. His good hand came up, his fingers brushing against my cheek, wiping away a stray tear. His touch was electric, sending a jolt straight to my core. You are shaking, he murmured. I'm scared, I admitted, leaning into his touch without thinking. Don't be, he whispered, leaning closer. His gaze dropped to my lips. I will burn this whole city down before I let them touch you. The distance between us vanished. He didn't ask this time. He just took. His mouth crashed onto mine, hot and desperate and possessive. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a claim. Tasted like whiskey, blood, and danger. My hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, forgetting about the gun, the money, the men outside. For a moment there was no mafia boss and no tourist. Just a man and a woman in a broken hotel room, finding fire in the rain. He pulled back breathlessly, resting his forehead against mine, his thumb tracing my lower lip. You should not have done that, he growled low in his throat. Why? I breathed, my heart racing. Because, he said, his dark eyes burning into my soul. Now I can never let you go. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and terrifying. He pulled away from me, the loss of his body heat feeling like a physical blow. He stood up abruptly, pacing toward the broken window, running his good hand through his hair in frustration. I compromised the position, he muttered to himself, his back to me. I let them get too close. I let you get too close. I stayed kneeling on the floor for a moment, touching my lips where he had kissed me. They felt swollen, sensitive. Minjun, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. You didn't compromise anything. You saved my life. He turned back to me and the mask was back in place. The cold, impenetrable fortress of the mafia boss. Get up, Wendy. We cannot stay here. Not with the window broken and a body on the floor. Where are we going? Nowhere. The exits are still watched. We moved to the adjacent suite. It's connected by a service door. He moved with efficient, ruthless speed, stepping over the unconscious man without a second glance. He grabbed the metal suitcase in his jacket, then extended a hand to me. Come. We moved into the next room. A mirror image of the first, but dark and untouched. He locked the connecting door and shoved a heavy dresser in front of it. Then he checked the perimeter, his gun never leaving his hand. Try to sleep, he said, nodding toward the bed. I will take the first watch. I can't sleep, I argued, wrapping my arms around myself. Someone just tried to kill us. You're bleeding. And we just made a mistake. He cut me off, his voice sharp. Go to sleep, Wendy. That is an order. I lay down on the massive bed, but I didn't close my eyes. I watched him. He pulled a chair to face the door, sitting in the darkness, the gun resting on his knee. He looked like a statue, silent and unmoving. But every few minutes his eyes would flick to me, checking if I was safe, checking if I was still there. Eventually, exhaustion won. I drifted into a restless sleep, filled with dreams of rain, gunshots, and eyes that looked like the abyss. I woke up to sunlight blinding me. I stretched, my hand reaching out across the sheets, expecting to find something or someone. But the other side of the bed was cold. I sat up, panic seizing my chest instantly. The chair by the door was empty. The gun was gone. The metal suitcase was gone. Minjun, I called out, my voice cracking. Silence. I scrambled out of bed, rushing to the bathroom, the closet, the balcony. Empty. He was gone. He had left me. A sickening feeling settled in my stomach. Of course he left. He was a criminal. I was a liability. He probably used the night to escape while his enemies were distracted, leaving me here to deal with the police, the hotel staff, and the bill I couldn't pay. Stupid. I whispered to myself, tears pricking my eyes. You stupid, stupid girl. You actually thought he cared. I sank onto the floor, pulling his oversized shirt around my knees. I had no clothes, no passport, no money, and I was in a foreign country hiding from hitmen. Then the door beeped. I flinched, scrambling back against the wall, grabbing a heavy glass vase from the table as a weapon. The door opened. Minjun walked in. He looked impeccable. He had changed his clothes, a fresh black turtleneck and tailored trousers. His hair was styled, his face shaved. He looked like a CEO, not the bloodied fighter from last night. And in his hands he was holding two things. A tray with 2 steaming cups of coffee, and a pink suitcase. You're awake, he said calmly, kicking the door shut behind him. I dropped the vase. It landed on the carpet with a dull thud. You came back. He paused, setting the coffee down on the table. He looked offended. I told you I protect what is mine. Did you think I would leave you here to be arrested? Yes, I admitted, standing up. My legs felt shaky. Where did you get that? I pointed to the pink bag. I made a few calls, he said nonchalantly. My men intercepted the courier who took your bag. It was messy, but we retrieved it. He pushed the pink suitcase toward me with his foot. Your passport is inside. Check it. I unzipped the bag, my hands flying over my familiar belongings. My sweaters, my makeup bag, my passport tucked safely in the side pocket. It was all there. Thank you. I breathed, relief washing over me so strong it almost made me dizzy. Thank you, Minjun. Don't thank me yet, he said, taking a sip of his coffee. His eyes were serious again. We have a problem. What problem? I have my bag. You have yours. I can go now, right? No, he said. You cannot. He walked over to the window, looking down at the street. The men from last night? They know your face now. They saw us through the window before the lights went out. They know you are with me. So if you walk out of here alone, they will snatch you off the street in less than 5 minutes. They will use you to get to me. They will torture you until I trade my life for yours. I felt the blood drain from my face. So I'm still trapped? Not trapped, he corrected. But we need a cover story. We need a reason for you to be with me that doesn't scream witness to a crime. He turned to me, his gaze sweeping over my body and his shirt again. This time there was calculation in his eyes. We are going to walk out of the front door, he said. Past the cameras, past the spies in the lobby. We are going to get into my car, and I am going to take you to my private estate in Gangnam. And why would the mafia boss take a tourist to his estate? I asked, crossing my arms. Minjun walked toward me, stopping when he was close enough that I could smell the coffee and mint on his breath. He reached out, his hand tucking a stray curl behind my ear. Because, he said smoothly, you are not a tourist anymore, Wendy. As of this morning, you are my fiancé. You're what? I screeched. It is the only way, he shrugged. If you are my fiancé, my men will protect you with their lives without asking questions. If you are my fiancé, my enemies will hesitate to touch you because it would start an all-out war. And he leaned in, his lips brushing against the shell of my ear. And it explains why you are wearing my shirt. I flushed, looking down at myself. This is insane. I can't pretend to be your fiancé. We don't even know each other. We know enough, he murmured. I know you are brave. I know you taste like strawberries. And you know I am a monster who is trying to be good. He pulled back, checking his watch. A platinum piece that probably cost more than my house. Get dressed, he commanded, his voice shifting back to business mode. Wear something expensive. We have an audience waiting downstairs. I don't have anything expensive, I protested, gesturing to my pink bag. I have jeans and hoodies. He looked at my bag with disdain. Right. I forgot. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Bring the car around. And call the boutique on Cheongdam-dong. Tell them to close the store. I am bringing a guest. He hung up and looked at me. Change of plans. Put on your jeans. We are going shopping first. Shopping? I blinked. While people are trying to kill us? Minjun smirked. A real dangerous smirk that made my stomach do flip-flops. The best place to hide is in plain sight, Wendy. If we act like we are terrified, they will attack. If we act like we own the city, he adjusted his cuffs, then they will fear us. He held out his hand to me. Ready to play the part, Jigia? I hesitated. Taking his hand meant stepping further into his world. It meant danger, lies, and pretending to love a man who terrified me. But looking at him, strong, confident, and looking at me like he would burn the world to keep me safe, I realized I didn't have a choice. I took his hand. Ready, I whispered. We took the elevator down. My heart was pounding so hard I thought the other guests could hear it. Minjun held my hand firmly, his thumb rubbing soothing circles on my knuckles. When the doors opened to the lobby, he pulled me flush against his side, his arm going around my waist like a steel band. Head up, he whispered. Look at no one but me. We walked through the opulent lobby of the Signal. I could feel eyes on us. Not just the staff, but men in dark suits sitting in the lounge, reading newspapers that hadn't been turned in 20 minutes. I buried my face in Minjun's shoulder, acting the part of the shy, love-struck fiancé. Perfect, he murmured against my hair. Keep walking. We burst out into the cool Seoul air. A sleek black limousine was waiting. A driver held the door open. Minjun guided me inside, shielding my head with his hand, then slid in beside me. As the car pulled away, merging into the chaotic traffic of Seoul, I let out a breath I had been holding for 10 minutes. We made it, I said, slumping back against the leather seat. Out of the hotel, yes, Minjun said, pouring himself a drink from the car's bar. But now the real game begins. He looked at me, his eyes dark. Welcome to my world, Wendy. Try not to get killed. The interior of the limousine was silent, save for the hum of the engine and the soft clink of crystal as Minjun set his glass down. It was a space designed for power, black leather, tinted windows that turned the sunny Seoul morning into a perpetual twilight, and enough legroom to host a small party. But right now it felt like a cage. A very expensive, very comfortable cage. So, I started, needing to break the silence before the reality of my situation crushed me. Fiancé. That's the plan? We just tell people we're getting married and they believe it. Minjun looked at me over the rim of his glass. The adrenaline from the hotel escape had faded, leaving him looking cool, calculated, and terrifyingly composed. People believe what they see, he said calmly. And they will see a woman wearing my ring, living in my house, and traveling under my protection. The details do not matter. The image does. I don't have a ring, I pointed out, lifting my bare hand. We are fixing that. He tapped the partition separating us from the driver. Change of destination. Go to the vault first. The driver didn't ask questions. The car simply banked smoothly to the left. The vault? I asked. My family's private collection, Minjun explained. If you are to be the future Mrs. Kim, you cannot wear something store-bought. It needs to be recognizable. Something my enemies will see and know immediately that you are off-limits. My stomach did a nervous flip. Mrs. Kim, please don't say it like that. It makes it sound real. Minjun leaned forward, the leather of his seat creaking. He rested his elbows on his knees, invading my personal space again. For the next few weeks, Wendy, it is real. You need to understand this. If you hesitate, if you look at me with fear instead of adoration when we are in public, people will notice. And if they notice, they will dig. And if they dig, they find out I'm just a tourist with a bad sense of direction. I finished for him. They find out you are a weakness, he corrected, his voice dropping to a whisper. And they will exploit that. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a sleek black phone. Here. I had my team get this for you. Your old phone is compromised. If the men at the airport tracked your signal, they have your number. This one is encrypted. Use it only to call me. I took the phone. It was heavy, brand new. You think of everything, don't you? I stay alive, he said simply. There is a difference. The car slowed to a stop in front of a nondescript building in the financial district. It looked like a bank, but with more security cameras and fewer windows. Minjun didn't wait for the driver this time. He opened the door himself and held out his hand to me. Rule number 1. he murmured as I slid my hand into his. Never leave my side. Not for a second. If you need the bathroom, I stand outside the door. If you need to sleep, I am in the room. Clear. Crystal, I muttered, trying to ignore the way his thumb brushed against my palm. We swept into the building. The guards bowed so low I thought their foreheads would touch the marble floor. Director Kim. One of them greeted, his voice shaking slightly. We were not expecting you. Open box 404, Minjun ordered, not breaking stride. We were led into a private viewing room that smelled of old money and lemon polish. A moment later, a heavy steel box was placed on the velvet table. Minjun opened it. Inside, nestled on black velvet, was a ring that made my jaw drop. It was a sapphire dark and deep as the ocean, surrounded by a halo of jagged, brilliant-cut diamonds. It wasn't delicate. It was heavy, ancient, and aggressive. This, Minjun said, picking it up, belonged to my grandmother. She was the only person my father ever feared. He turned to me, taking my left hand. He didn't ask if I liked it. He just slid it onto my ring finger. It was a perfect fit. A chill went down my spine. How did you know my size? I estimated. He lied smoothly, though his eyes gave nothing away. I am good with details. He held my hand up to the light, inspecting the ring. The blue stone caught the light, flashing dangerously. Good. It looks heavy on you. Like a shackle. Is that what I am? I asked, looking up at him. A prisoner. Minjun lowered my hand but didn't let go. His expression softened, the hard lines of his face relaxing just a fraction. No, he said softly. A partner. For now. If the vault was intimidating, Cheongdam-dong was overwhelming. This was the Beverly Hills of Seoul, but cleaner, sharper, and more intense. The streets were lined with flagship stores, Chanel, Dior, Louis Vuitton, standing like temples to the god of consumerism. Our limousine pulled up to a boutique I didn't recognize, but it looked expensive. The windows were empty except for a single mannequin wearing a dress that probably cost more than my parents' car. The sign on the door said closed, but Minjun ignored it. He walked up to the glass doors, and before he could even knock, a terrified-looking manager unlocked them, bowing frantically. Mr. Kim, we are honored. We closed the floor as soon as your assistant called. Good, Minjun said, guiding me inside with a hand on the small of my back. We need a wardrobe. Everything. Daywear, evening wear, shoes, lingerie. The manager, a stylish woman with a sharp bob, looked at me. Her eyes raked over my frizzy hair, my worn jeans, and the oversized men's shirt I had tucked into them. I saw the judgment flare in her eyes. Asterisk, who is this street rat with the king of Seoul? Asterisk, before her gaze landed on the massive sapphire ring on my finger. Her attitude changed instantly. Judgment was replaced by awe and fear. Of course, madam, she said, bowing to me. If you will follow me? We have the new collection in the VIP suite. Minjun sat on a plush velvet sofa in the center of the private dressing area. A server immediately placed a glass of scotch in his hand. He looked like a king holding court, relaxed but watchful. Go, he told me, waving a hand at the racks of clothes the assistants were wheeling in. Try them on. I want to see everything. I was ushered into a changing room that was bigger than my bedroom back home. The assistants fluttered around me, pulling clothes off hangers, silks, cashmeres, leathers. Mr. Kim likes dark colors, one whispered helpfully. But Madam's skin tone is so rich, she can wear the jewel tones, another argued. They dressed me like a doll. The first outfit was a structured white pantsuit. I stepped out feeling like a CEO. Minjun took one look, swirled his drink, and shook his head. Too stiff. Next. I went back. The next was a floral sundress. Too innocent. His voice drifted through the curtain. Next. A black leather mini dress. Too cheap. Next. I was getting annoyed. I grabbed a dress from the back of the rack. A deep emerald green slip dress made of liquid silk. It had a cowl neck that dipped low and a slit that went dangerously high up my thigh. It was beautiful, but it felt scandalous. I put it on. The silk slid over my skin like water. I stepped into the heels they provided and walked out, pushing the curtain aside with a bit more force than necessary. Is this one to anything, or can we? I stopped. Minjun had frozen again. His glass was halfway to his mouth. He lowered it slowly, setting it on the table without looking away from me. He stood up. The assistants, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, quietly evaporated into the back room, leaving us alone in the VIP suite. Minjun walked toward me. He didn't stop until he was standing right in front of me, crowding my space, his heat radiating through the thin silk of the dress. "Turn around," he commanded softly. I did, my heart pounding. I felt his fingers brush the hair off my neck. I shivered. "This is dangerous," he murmured against the nape of my neck. "You look like a fiancé," I whispered, looking at him through the mirror. His eyes met mine in the reflection. They were burning. "You look like a queen. My queen." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a necklace, a thin platinum chain with a single diamond. He fastened it around my neck, his fingers lingering on my skin a second too long. "Wear this one tonight," he said, his voice rough. "We are having dinner with my uncle. He is the one who tried to kill us last night." I spun around, the spell broken instantly. "What? The uncle who tried to kill us? And we're having dinner with him?" "It is a peace offering," Minjun said, his face hardening back into the mask of the boss. "Or at least that is what he thinks. In reality, it is a power move. I am showing him that his attack failed, that I am strong enough to walk into his house, drink his wine, and introduce him to my beautiful new fiancé without a tremble of fear." He gripped my shoulders. "You have to be perfect tonight, Wendy. He will test you. He will try to scare you. If you crack, he wins." "I won't crack," I said, lifting my chin, channeling every ounce of stubbornness I possessed. "I survived you, didn't I? Your uncle is just an old man." Minjun smirked, that dangerous, panty-melting smirk returning. "Careful, Jagia. You are starting to sound like a gangster yourself." The drive to the estate took us out of the city and into the mountains surrounding Seoul. The sun was setting, painting the sky in bruises of purple and red. Minjun's house was not a house. It was a fortress. High stone walls topped with cameras and, I squinted, was that electric wire? The gates opened silently, revealing a sprawling modern mansion of glass and concrete that looked like a villain's lair from a Bond movie. "This is where you live?" I asked, pressing my face to the glass. "It is secure," he said. "Bulletproof glass. Independent power grid. A panic room on every floor." "It's lonely," I said without thinking. Minjun looked at the house, then at me. "It was," he said quietly. The car stopped. A team of guards opened the doors. I stepped out, clutching my new designer clutch bag like a weapon. The air here was cleaner, colder. "Ready?" Minjun offered his arm. I took it, feeling the hard muscle beneath his suit jacket. "Do I have a choice?" "Always," he said, and for a moment he looked deadly serious. "You can get back in the car. I can have them drive you to the embassy. You can go home, Wendy. Forget you ever met me." I looked at the open car door. Safety. Normalcy. My old life. Then I looked at Minjun. I saw the slight tension in his jaw, the way his hand was clenched into a fist at his side. He was giving me an out, but he was terrified I would take it. I thought about the man who jumped in front of a bullet for a stranger. I thought about the way he looked at me in that dress. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, looping my arm tighter through his. "Besides, I want to see you scare your uncle." Minjun let out a breath he had been holding. He covered my hand with his own, squeezing it firmly. "Let's go then," he said. "Showtime." We walked into the lion's den. The dining room was vast, with a table long enough to seat 20 people. But there were only 3 place settings. At the head of the table sat an older man. He looked like an aged version of Minjun's sharp features, cold eyes, but with a cruelty in his mouth that Minjun didn't have. "Nephew," the old man boomed, not standing up. "And the guest." "Fiancé," Minjun corrected smoothly, pulling out a chair for me. "Uncle, meet Wendy Nelson, the future mistress of this house." The uncle, Minjun had called him Director Choi, looked at me with eyes like a reptile. He didn't look at my face. He looked straight at the sapphire ring on my finger. His eyes widened slightly. He recognized it. "Bold," Choi sneered, taking a sip of wine. "To give the matriarch's ring to a foreigner. A tourist." "She is not a tourist," Minjun said, sitting down and draping an arm casually over the back of my chair, a protective barrier between me and his uncle. She is the woman who saved my life. I blinked. That wasn't part of the script. Choi laughed, a dry rasping sound. Saved your life? How? Did she bore the assassins to death? No, Minjun smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Last night when your men apologies the unknown assailants breached the hotel. I was reckless. I was distracted. Wendy saw the gunman in the reflection of the window. She pushed me out of the way. It was a lie. A beautiful, seamless lie. He was rewriting the story to make me look strong, to make me look valuable. Is that so? Choi leaned forward, staring at me. You have sharp eyes, girl. I do, I said, finding my voice. I leaned forward too, resting my chin on my hand, letting the sapphire ring catch the candlelight. For example, I see that your hand is shaking, Director Choi. Are you nervous? Minjun stiffened beside me. I had gone off script. Choi froze. The room went silent. The guards in the corner shifted their hands to their holsters. Then Choi threw his head back and laughed. Ha! She has claws. I like her, Minjun. She has fire. You will need that fire. Because winter is coming for our family. He picked up his knife, slicing into the steak on his plate with savage force. Eat, Choi commanded. Before the food gets cold. We have business to discuss. Bloody business. Minjun's hand found my knee under the table, squeezing it gently. Good job, the touch said. You survived round one. But as I looked at the steak bleeding onto the white porcelain plate, I lost my appetite. I realized that this wasn't just a game of dress-up. These men were dangerous. And by wearing this ring, by sitting at this table, I had just painted a target on my own back. I was in the mafia now, and there was no turning back. The drive back to Minjun's estate was silent, but it wasn't the terrified silence of the morning. It was electric. The kind of silence that hums with unsaid words and adrenaline. Minjun hadn't let go of my hand since we left his uncle's dining room. His thumb was tracing slow, rhythmic circles on my palm, a gesture that felt less like comfort and more like ownership. You were magnificent, he said finally, breaking the silence as the car wound up the private road to his fortress. I looked at him. The shadows of the passing streetlights cut across his face, highlighting the sharp angle of his jaw. I was terrified. I thought he was going to order his guards to shoot us. He wanted to, Minjun admitted calmly. But he didn't. Do you know why? Because you're scary? Minjun chuckled, a low rumble of a sound that vibrated through the seat. No. Because you surprised him. In our world, women are usually ornaments. Silent. Fearful. You looked him in the eye and challenged him. You made him wonder if you knew secrets he didn't. He lifted my hand, bringing it to his lips. He kissed the sapphire ring, his eyes locked on mine. You made him doubt his own power. That is the most dangerous thing you could have done. And the most perfect. I shivered, and it wasn't from the cold. So I passed the test? With flying colors. He murmured against my skin. But now comes the hard part. There's a harder part? The car slowed to a stop in front of the massive glass doors of his estate. Living the lie, he said. Welcome home, Mrs. Kim. The estate was even more intimidating at night. It was a monolith of modern architecture. Concrete, steel and glass, softened only by the strategic lighting that made the whole place glow like a fortress in a sci-fi movie. The staff was lined up in the foyer when we entered. 6 of them. A housekeeper, a chef, and 4 men who looked more like soldiers than butlers. Welcome home, Director. They chorused in unison, bowing at a perfect 90-degree angle. This is Wendy Nelson, Minjun announced, his voice carrying through the high-ceilinged hall. My fiancée. Her word is my word. Her safety is your life. Do you understand? Yes, sir. I shrank back slightly against Minjun's side. It was too much. The discipline, the obedience, the sheer scale of his power. Minjun sensed my hesitation. His arm tightened around my waist, pulling me flush against him. Prepare the master suite, he ordered the head housekeeper, a stern-faced woman named Mrs. Lee. And bring a bottle of the 82 Petrus. The master suite? I whispered as he led me toward a floating staircase made of glass. I assumed I'd have a guest room. Minjun stopped on the stairs. He turned to me, his face serious. My uncle has spies everywhere, Wendy. Even in my own house. If we sleep in separate rooms, the rumor will spread by morning that our engagement is a sham. He leaned in close, his voice dropping to a rough whisper. Tonight we sleep together. My heart slammed against my ribs. In the same bed? It is a very large bed, he said dryly, but his eyes were dark. Unless you prefer the floor. We reached the top floor, which seemed to be entirely dedicated to the master suite. It was bigger than my parents' entire house. A living area with a fireplace, a private office, a bathroom that looked like a spa, and a bedroom dominated by a bed that could easily sleep 4 people. One wall was entirely glass, overlooking the city of Seoul below. It felt like we were floating in the sky, detached from the world. Minjun locked the heavy double doors behind us. He punched a code into a panel on the wall, and steel shutters began to descend over the glass windows, sealing us in. Security mode, he explained, seeing my wide eyes. Now no one can see in. No one can get in. He took off his jacket, tossing it onto a leather bench. He unbuttoned his cuffs, rolling up his sleeves to reveal his forearms, veined, muscular, and marked with a few faint white scars. Relax, Wendy, he said, walking to the minibar. I am not going to attack you. I am tired. You are tired. We are just going to sleep. He poured 2 glasses of wine, handing one to me. I took it, needing the liquid courage. I need to shower, I said, gesturing to the bathroom. I feel like I have layers of fear sweating on me. Go ahead, he nodded. Everything you bought today has been put away in the dressing room. I retreated to the bathroom, which was all black marble and gold fixtures. I locked the door, force of habit, and stripped off the green silk dress. I stood under the rainfall shower for a long time, letting the hot water wash away the tension of the day. When I stepped out, wrapped in a fluffy towel, I walked into the massive walk-in closet. It was filled with the clothes Minjun had bought. Rows of designer dresses, shelves of shoes, drawers of... I opened a drawer and blushed. Lingerie. Miles of lace and silk. I couldn't wear this. Not in front of him. I searched frantically until I found a drawer with sleepwear. I grabbed a pair of black silk pajama shorts and a matching camisole. It was modest compared to the lace, but still. It was silk. It clung to every curve. I took a deep breath. You can do this, Wendy. He's just a man. A dangerous, incredibly handsome man who calls you his queen. I unlocked the bathroom door and stepped back into the bedroom. The lights had been dimmed. Minjun was sitting on the edge of the bed, reading something on a tablet. He had changed too. He was wearing gray sweatpants that hung low on his hips and a black t-shirt that stretched tight across his chest. It was the most casual I had ever seen him, and somehow it made him look even more dangerous, more real. He looked up when I entered. His eyes tracked me from the bathroom door to the bed. He didn't say anything, but I saw his throat bob as he swallowed. Better? He asked, his voice rough. Cleaner, I managed to say. I hovered by the side of the bed. Which side is? I sleep on the side of the door, he said, patting the space next to him. Force of habit. In case I need to shoot someone. Comforting, I muttered, climbing onto the other side of the mattress. The bed was comfortable, sinking under my weight like a cloud. I pulled the duvet up to my chin, turning my back to him. Good night, Minjun. Good night, Wendy. I heard him set the tablet down. I heard the click of the bedside lamp. The room plunged into darkness. I lay there, stiff as a board, listening to his breathing. It was slow, steady. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, warming the space between us. Minutes ticked by. 10. 20. You are thinking too loud. His voice cut through the darkness. I turned over. I couldn't see his face, just the outline of his profile against the faint light of the hallway under the door crack. I'm wondering how you do it, I whispered. How do you sleep knowing people want you dead? There was a rustle of sheets as he turned to face me. I don't sleep well, he admitted. Usually. But tonight is different, he said. His hand moved across the space between us, finding my hand under the covers. He laced his fingers through mine. Tonight I know exactly where you are. I don't have to worry about them finding you. You are right here. His thumb stroked the back of my hand. It is quiet in my head. For the first time in a long time. My heart squeezed. He wasn't just a monster. He was a lonely man living in a fortress of his own making. Min-jun, I whispered. About what you said in the hotel. About letting me go. I lied, he said immediately. I told you. I am selfish. He shifted, moving closer until our knees bumped. You should sleep, Wendy. Tomorrow the real work begins. We have to plan the engagement party. We have to convince the rest of the board. And... He paused. And what? And I have to teach you how to shoot, he said seriously. I pulled my hand back, but he held on tight. Shoot? I am not shooting anyone. You need to know how, he insisted. If they come when I am not there. You need to be able to protect yourself. I will not let you be helpless. He squeezed my hand one last time, then brought it to his chest, resting it right over his heart. I could feel the steady, powerful beat of it under his t-shirt. Sleep, he commanded softly. I am watching. Surprisingly, I did. Lulled by the rhythm of his heartbeat and the warmth of his hand, I fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. I woke up to the smell of coffee and gunpowder. I sat up, blinking against the morning light streaming through the now open shutters. Min-jun was standing on the balcony, cleaning a handgun. He was shirtless. I stopped breathing. His back was a landscape of muscle and scars. There was a long jagged scar running down his right shoulder blade. Another one on his lower back. He looked like a warrior who had survived 100 battles. He turned around, sensing me awake. His chest was just as impressive, defined pectorals, a six-pack that looked carved from stone, and a dusting of dark hair that trailed down into his sweatpants. Good morning, he said, not even slightly embarrassed about his nudity. Did you sleep well? I stared at his abs. Yes. He smirked, fully aware of the effect he was having on me. He walked back into the room, placing the reassembled gun on the dresser. Good. Because we have visitors. Visitors. I scrambled out of bed, looking for a robe. Who? My mother, he said grimly. And she is much worse than my uncle. I froze, clutching a silk robe to my chest. Your mother? You didn't tell me you had a mother. Everyone has a mother, Wendy, he deadpanned. Mine just happens to be the former head of the syndicate. She retired 5 years ago, but she still thinks she runs my life. He walked over to me, grabbing my shoulders. She is coming to inspect you. She wants to see if you are worthy of the ring. If you are worthy of me. And if she decides I'm not, then she will try to pay you to leave. Or threaten you. He looked me dead in the eye. She will look for weakness. Do not show her any. He leaned down and kissed my forehead. A lingering sweet gesture that felt startlingly domestic. Get dressed, he said. Put on the red dress we bought. War paint. Meeting Madame Kim was like meeting a dragon in a Chanel suit. She was sitting in the main living room sipping tea. She was tiny, elegant, with hair dyed jet black and pulled into a tight bun. But her eyes were exactly like Min-jun's, cold, calculating, and sharp as diamonds. So, she said, not standing up as we entered. This is the American? Nigerian. I corrected instantly, stepping forward. My name is Wendy Nelson, Madam Kim. It is a pleasure to meet you. She looked me up and down, her gaze lingering on my hips, then my chest. She let out a small humph sound. She is substantial, Madam Kim said to Min-jun, speaking as if I wasn't there. Not like the stick figures you usually date. This one looks like she can bear children. I choked on air. Min-jun didn't even blink. She is strong, mother, he said, putting his hand on the small of my back. And she is mine. We will see, she said, setting her teacup down with a clatter. Sit, girl. Let us talk. Min-jun, leave us. I am not leaving her. Leave us, she snapped. The authority in her voice was absolute. If she is to be your wife, she needs to handle a conversation with her mother-in-law without you holding her hand. Min-jun looked at me, hesitant. It's okay, I said, forcing a smile I didn't feel. Go. I'll be fine. He looked at his mother with a warning glare. If you upset her. Go, she waved him away. Min-jun walked out, But I knew he was just on the other side of the door. Madam Kim leaned forward. The air in the room changed. It wasn't polite anymore. It was heavy. "Let us cut the act," she said, her voice dropping to a hiss. "I know who you are. Or rather, who you are not. You are not a fiancé. You are a distraction. A pretty tourist my son picked up to make himself feel human." She reached into her purse and pulled out a checkbook. "He thinks he loves you. Maybe he does. But love in our world is a weakness. Gets people killed. My husband loved me, and he died because he hesitated to pull the trigger when I was in the line of fire." She scribbled a number on a check and slid it across the coffee table. $1 million, she said. USD. Take it. Go back to Africa. Start a business. Live a long, happy life. I looked at the check. It was more money than I would make in 20 years. It was freedom. It was safety. "And if I stay?" I asked quietly. "If you stay," she said, her eyes turning sad and hard at the same time, "you will be hunted. You will be used against him. And one day you will watch him die or he will watch you die. That is the only ending for men like him." I looked at the check. Then I looked at the door where Minjun was waiting. I thought about the way he held my hand in the dark, the way he slept on the side of the door, the scars on his back that told the story of a man who had borne the weight of his world alone. I reached out and took the check. Madam Kim smiled, a triumphant, cruel little smile. Then I ripped it in half. The sound of tearing paper was loud in the silent room. I ripped it again and again until it was confetti. I let the pieces fall onto the expensive Persian rug. "I am not a distraction, Madam Kim," I said, my voice steady and strong. "And I am not for sale. I love your son. And unlike you, I don't think his love makes him weak. I think it's the only thing keeping him human." Madam Kim stared at the torn paper. Her face was unreadable. She sat there for a long, agonizing minute. Then she stood up. She walked over to me. I braced myself, expecting a slap. Instead, she reached out and straightened the collar of my red dress. $1 million, she murmured. "And you tore it up. You are either very stupid or very loyal." She looked at the door. "He was listening, you know. He hacked the intercom." My cheeks burned. He heard that?" "He heard you choose him over a fortune," she said. A small, genuine smile touched her lips. "Welcome to the family, Wendy. Try to survive." She walked toward the door. As she opened it, Minjun was standing there. He wasn't looking at his mother. He was looking at me with an expression of such raw, overwhelming devotion that it took my breath away. Madam Kim patted his cheek. "She is a keeper, this one. Don't ruin it." As soon as she was gone, Minjun was across the room. He didn't say a word. He just crashed his lips onto mine, lifting me up off the floor. I wrapped my legs around his waist, burying my hands in his hair. "You tore the check," he whispered against my mouth, sounding dazed. "Why?" "Because," I said, breathless. "You're worth more than $1 million, Mr. Kim. I am going to give you everything," he vowed, kissing my neck, my jaw, my lips. "The world. I will give you the damn world." But as we stood there, wrapped in each other, the phone on the table began to ring. It was the encrypted phone he had given me. Minjun froze. He let me down slowly, walking over to the phone. He answered it on speaker. "Hello. Hello, lover boy." A distorted voice crackled through the speaker. "Cute performance at the uncle's house. But did you really think we wouldn't check the passenger manifests?" My blood ran cold. "We know she's a tourist, Minjun. We know her visa expires in 2 weeks. And we know her parents' address in Lagos." Minjun's hand crushed the phone. His face turned into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. "If you touch her family," he said, his voice sounding like the grave, "I will skin you alive." "Tick-tock, director," the voice laughed. "Bring us the suitcase. The real suitcase. Or mommy and daddy get a visit." The line went dead. Minjun stood there, his back to me. He was trembling. Not with fear. With fury. "Wendy," he said, his voice unrecognizable. "Pack a bag." "Where are we going?" I whispered. He turned around. His eyes were black holes. "We are going to Nigeria." The flight to Lagos was nothing like the commercial flights I was used to. There were no crying babies, no cramped legroom, and no fighting for the armrest. Minjun's private jet was a palace in the sky, cream leather seats, a full bedroom in the back, and a flight attendant who poured vintage champagne before we even took off. But neither of us touched the champagne. I sat by the window watching the clouds shift from the gray over Seoul to the endless blue of the ocean. My knee was bouncing nervously. "Stop," Minjun said gently, placing his hand over my knee to still it. "I can't," I said, my voice tight. "They know where my parents live, Minjun. My dad sits on the porch every evening to read his newspaper. My mom goes to the market on Tuesdays. They are sitting ducks." Minjun unbuckled his seatbelt and moved from the seat across from me to the one right next to me. He turned my chair so I was facing him. "Listen to me," he commanded, his voice calm and steady. "I have a team already on the ground in Lagos. They arrived an hour ago. My head of security, Juno, is personally sitting in a car outside your parents' house right now. If anyone approaches that gate, they will be intercepted." I looked at him, searching for the truth in his eyes. "You sent people to Nigeria? When?" "The moment I decided to keep you," he said simply. "I knew your family would be a leverage point. I secured them before I even bought you that ring." I let out a shaky breath, half relief, half awe. "You really are a control freak, aren't you?" "I am a strategist," he corrected. He reached out, tucking a lock of hair behind my ear. "And right now my strategy involves charming your parents." I groaned, burying my face in my hands. "Oh God, my parents. I haven't told them anything. I told them I was going to Korea for a semester abroad. Now I'm bringing home a Korean man? In a private jet? Who has a gun?" "I left the gun in the cargo hold," Minjun said, looking offended. "I am not going to bring a weapon into your mother's house. That would be rude. That's not the point. They are going to have questions. A lot of questions. My dad is strict. He thinks I'm focusing on my studies. If I show up with a fiancé, he might have a heart attack." Minjun smirked. "I have handled Yakuza bosses, Russian oligarchs, and my own mother. I think I can handle Mr. Adiwale." "You don't know Nigerian fathers," I warned him. "They are a different kind of mafia." Minjun laughed, the sound relaxing the tension in his shoulders. "Then we stick to the cover story. I am a businessman. Logistics and shipping." "Technically true," I muttered. "You ship illegal things." "I ship many things," he countered. "And we met at a library? Too boring. My mom won't believe I met a man like you in a library." "Where then?" "A coffee shop," I decided. "I spilled my latte on your expensive suit. You were charmed by my clumsiness." "I was charmed by your clumsiness," he murmured, his eyes darkening as he looked at my lips. "And your fire." He leaned in, kissing me softly. It started gentle, a reassurance, but up here in the thin air, with the adrenaline of the threat still humming in our veins, it quickly deepened. He pulled me into his lap, his hands exploring the curves of my waist, his mouth devouring mine. "We have 12 hours, he whispered against my neck. "Let me make you forget about the fear." And for the next few hours, somewhere over the Indian Ocean, he did. Lagos hit us like a physical force. As soon as the jet door opened, the heat wrapped around us, thick, humid, and smelling of dust, exhaust, and the ocean. It was the smell of home. Minjun stepped out onto the tarmac, wearing a linen suit and sunglasses. He looked completely out of place, like a diamond dropped in the dirt, but he didn't flinch. He scanned the perimeter, his body language shifting instantly from lover to protector. 3 armored SUVs were waiting on the tarmac. A massive Korean man with a scar running through his eyebrow stepped forward. "Director," he bowed. "The package is secure. No movement at the target location." "Good work, Juno," Minjun said in Korean. He turned to me. "Wendy, this is Juno. He will be your shadow while we are here." "Hi," I waved awkwardly. Juno just nodded, looking terrifying. We climbed into the middle SUV. The drive from the airport to my parents' house in Ikeja was chaos. The traffic, the famous Lagos go slow, was at a standstill. Hawkers were weaving between cars selling everything from gala to phone chargers. Minjun watched it all with fascination. "It is chaotic," he observed as a yellow Danfo bus cut us off, the conductor hanging out the door screaming. "It's organized chaos," I said, smiling for the first time in days. Welcome to Lagos. When we finally pulled up to the gate of my parents' compound, my stomach did a flip. The gateman, old Mr. Sunday, peered through the hole, saw the convoy of black SUVs, and looked ready to run. It's me, Mr. Sunday. I rolled down the window shouting, Wendy. Ah, Wendy baby. His face broke into a wide grin. He threw the gates open. We drove in. My mom was already standing on the porch, wiping her hands on a wrapper tied around her waist. She looked confused, staring at the expensive cars filling up her modest driveway. I stepped out. Mama! Wendy! She rushed forward, hugging me tight, smelling of spices and comfort. What is this? You didn't tell us you were coming. And whose cars are these? Did you win lottery? Then Minjun stepped out. The compound went silent. He walked around the car, tall, pale, and impossibly handsome. He took off his sunglasses. He walked up to my mother, and to my absolute shock, he didn't just bow. He prostrated. Well, almost. He bowed so low, putting his hands on his knees in a respectful greeting that was a perfect blend of Korean formal etiquette and Nigerian respect for elders. Good afternoon, Ma, he said, his accent thick but charming. I am sorry for the intrusion. My mother's jaw dropped. She looked at him, then at me, then back at him. Wendy, she whispered loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Who is this Nollywood actor you brought to my house? Mama. I took a deep breath, grabbing Minjun's hand. This is Minjun. He's my fiancé. If I thought the interrogation at the mafia estate was bad, it was nothing compared to the interrogation in my parents' living room. My father sat in his favorite armchair, looking at Minjun over the rim of his glasses. My mother was piling food onto Minjun's plate: jollof rice, fried plantain, goat meat pepper soup. So, my father said, his voice deep and booming, Mr. Kim, you are from South Korea. Yes, sir, Minjun said, sitting with perfect posture. He hadn't touched his food yet. He was waiting for my father to eat first. Another sign of respect that I could see was earning him points. And what work do you do that allows you to fly private jets? I own a logistics company, Minjun said smoothly. We handle shipping routes between Asia and West Africa. Import-export. Supply chain management. Shipping, my father mused. Lucrative business. But dangerous. Pirates on the water. I have a very good security team, Minjun said, his eyes meeting my father's. I do not let anyone take what is mine. My father paused. He recognized the tone. It was the tone of a man who commanded respect. He nodded slowly. And my daughter? You met in a coffee shop. She spilled coffee on me, Minjun lied effortlessly, glancing at me with a warm smile. It was the best mistake of my life. My mother swooned. Like in the movies. Eat. She pointed at the bowl of pepper soup. It is fresh goat meat. Very spicy. I hope you can handle spice, Mr. Kim. I tensed. Minjun liked spicy food, but Nigerian pepper was different. It was aggressive. Minjun picked up his spoon. I love spice, Ma. He took a large spoonful of the soup. I watched him carefully. He swallowed. His eyes watered slightly. A faint sheen of sweat appeared on his forehead. But his expression didn't change. It is delicious, he managed to say, his voice a little strained. Very vigorous. My father laughed, a booming sound that shook the room. Vigorous. I like this man. He has chest. The tension in the room broke. Minjun had survived the pepper test. So, my father said, leaning back, you want to marry my daughter. In our culture there is a list. A bride price. Papa, I exclaimed. We are not doing that now. I am aware, Minjun interrupted gently. I have read about the traditions. Yams, goats, fabric, cash. He signaled to Juno, who was standing by the door like a statue. Juno stepped forward and placed a heavy briefcase on the table. Minjun opened it. It wasn't yams. It was stacks of crisp new $100 bills. And a set of gold jewelry that looked heavy enough to sink a ship. I did not know where to buy the best yams in Lagos on short notice, Minjun said apologetically. But I hope this will show my sincerity. I intend to take care of your daughter, sir. She will never want for anything. My mother gasped, touching her chest. My father looked at the money, then at Minjun. He wasn't looking at the cash with greed. He was looking at it with concern. "This is a lot of money, Mr. Kim," my father said quietly. "A man who pays this much expects a lot in return." Minjun closed the briefcase. He looked at me, and the softness in his eyes was real. "She has already saved my life," he said. "Everything I have is hers. This is just paperwork." My father looked at him for a long moment. Then he stood up and extended his hand. "Welcome to the family, Minjun. But if you hurt her, I don't care how many security guards you have. I will find you." Minjun shook his hand firmly. "I expect nothing less, sir." We were staying in the guest wing of the house. It wasn't the Signal Hotel. There was no AC in this room, just a ceiling fan spinning lazily overhead. The bed was small. The sounds of Legos, generators humming, dogs barking, music from a nearby bar, drifted in through the window. Minjun was sitting on the edge of the bed, taking off his shoes. He looked exhausted. The heat, the travel, and the performance for my parents had drained him. "You were amazing," I said, sitting next to him. "My dad loves you. My mom is already planning the wedding colors." "Your father is terrifying," Minjun said seriously. "He looks at me like he knows I am lying about the shipping business." "He probably suspects," I admitted. "But he sees how you look at me. That's what matters." Minjun turned to me, pulling me between his legs. "And how do I look at you?" "Like you're hungry," I teased. "I am," he growled playfully, biting my neck. "But not for pepper soup." I laughed, pushing him back onto the mattress. "It's too hot for that, Minjun. We'll stick together." He groaned, flopping back against the pillows. "Legos heat is no joke. How do you survive this?" "We are strong people," I said, laying my head on his chest. The moment was peaceful, domestic, normal. And then the power went out. The ceiling fan slowed to a halt. The lights died. The hum of the neighborhood changed as silence fell, followed by the roar of generators kicking in one by one. But our generator didn't kick in. Minjun sat up instantly, his body tense. "Why is the generator not on?" "Maybe it's out of fuel," I said, reaching for my phone to use the flashlight. "No," Minjun said, his voice dropping to that cold, lethal tone I hadn't heard since the hotel. "Juno filled it when we arrived." He moved to the window, peering out through the blinds. "Juno is not at his post," he whispered. My blood ran cold. "What?" Minjun grabbed his bag, the one he had carried from the plane. He unzipped it and pulled out 2 handguns. He hadn't left them in the cargo hold after all. He checked the clip on one and handed it to me. "Do you remember what I taught you on the plane?" he asked, his eyes locking onto mine. "Safety off. Aim for center mass. Don't close my eyes," I recited, my hands shaking as I took the cold metal. "Good girl," he said. "Stay behind me." He moved to the bedroom door, listening. From the hallway I heard a floorboard creak. It wasn't my mother's soft footsteps. It was the heavy boot of a man trying to be quiet. "They're here," Minjun whispered. "My parents," I gasped, panic seizing my throat. "Minjun, my parents are in the other room. Juno is with them," he promised, though I could see the worry in his eyes. He would have moved to secure them the moment the power was cut. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by the sound of glass breaking in the living room, followed by a shout in Korean. "Minjun, come out. We know you're in there." Minjun looked at me. He kissed my forehead hard, a goodbye and a promise. "Lock this door behind me," he ordered. "Don't open it unless you hear my voice." Minjun, no. But he was already gone, slipping into the dark hallway like a ghost. I scrambled to lock the door, pressing my back against it, clutching the gun to my chest. I heard shouting. I heard the distinct crack of gunfire. I heard a scream, my mother's scream. "Mama!" I screamed. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't hide in a room while my parents were in danger. Screw the plan. Screw safety. I unlocked the door and ran into the darkness. The hallway was pitch black, but flashes of gunfire from the living room strobed like lightning, illuminating snapshots of chaos. I gripped the heavy metal of the gun Minjun had given me, my palms sweating against the steel. I rounded the corner into the living room and froze. It was a war zone. My mother's favorite ceramic vase lay shattered on the floor. The coffee table was overturned. Juno, the massive bodyguard, was grappling with a man near the kitchen, their movements a blur of violence. But my eyes went straight to the center of the room. My father was on his knees, his hands behind his head. Standing over him was a man in tactical gear, holding a gun to the back of my father's neck. My mother was huddled in the corner, sobbing silently, her hand over her mouth. And Min-jun. He stood near the entryway, his gun raised, pointed directly at the man holding my father. He was perfectly still like a statue, but I could see the tension radiating off him. If he took the shot, he risked hitting my dad. The angle was too bad. "Drop it, Kim," the gunman shouted in English, his accent harsh. "Or the old man dies." "If you pull that trigger," Min-jun said, his voice terrifyingly calm, "you will not leave this continent alive. I will hunt down everyone you have ever met. I'm dead anyway if I don't bring the suitcase." The gunman spat back. "Put the gun down." Min-jun hesitated. For the first time since I met him, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Not for himself but for the collateral damage. For my family. I couldn't let him surrender. If he put his gun down, they would kill us all. I stepped out from the shadows of the hallway. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice cracking but loud. The gunman flinched, his eyes darting toward me for a fraction of a second. He saw me. A girl in silk pajamas holding a gun with shaking hands. He dismissed me instantly as a threat. That was his mistake. "Wendy, get back!" Min-jun roared. I didn't go back. I raised the gun, remembering Min-jun's words. Center mass. Don't close your eyes. I didn't aim for the man. I knew I would miss. I aimed for the large glass cabinet behind him. My mother's display of expensive china plates. I pulled the trigger. The recoil nearly dislocated my shoulder. The sound was deafening. The bullet shattered the glass cabinet with an explosive crash, sending shards flying everywhere. The gunman flinched instinctively, ducking away from the shower of glass. His gun moved 2 inches away from my father's neck. 2 inches was all Min-jun needed. Bang. Bang. 2 shots. Double tap. The gunman dropped to the floor before the glass had even finished falling. Silence descended on the room, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the smell of gunpowder and the sound of my mother weeping. Min-jun moved instantly. He didn't check the body. He rushed to my father, helping him up, checking him for injuries. Then he turned to me. He crossed the room in 2 strides, grabbing my shoulders. His eyes were wild, scanning me for blood. "Are you hit? Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine," I gasped, the adrenaline crashing out of my system. My legs gave way and he caught me, pulling me into his chest. "I shot the plates. I broke Mama's plates." "You saved us," he whispered fiercely into my hair. "You crazy brave girl. You saved us." Juno appeared, dragging the unconscious man he had been fighting. He nodded to Min-jun. "Perimeter secure, Director. 2 tangos down. 1 in custody." Min-jun nodded, then turned to my parents. My father was standing by the overturned table, rubbing his neck. He looked at the dead man on his rug. Then he looked at Min-jun. "You," my father said, his voice shaking with a mix of rage and shock. "You are not in logistics." Min-jun released me slowly. He straightened his jacket, though it was torn at the shoulder. He looked at my parents and he didn't try to lie. "No, sir," Min-jun said, bowing his head in shame. "I am not." "Who are you?" my mother whispered, clutching her rosary. "Who are you people?" "I am the head of the Kim Syndicate," Min-jun said clearly. "And the men who came here. They came because of me. I brought this violence to your home. There is no apology great enough for that." My father looked at the gun lying on the floor. Then he looked at me, shivering in Min-jun's arms. "You brought war to my house," my father said, stepping closer. "But you also stood in front of my gun. You didn't run." "I would never run," Min-jun said. "Wendy is my life. Her family is my family." "Then fix this," my father commanded, pointing to the door. "Take this darkness away from my daughter. Finish it." Min-jun nodded. He turned to me, his face set in stone. Pack your things, Wendy, he said softly. We are leaving. Leaving? Now. We cannot stay here. It is not safe. The only way to keep your parents safe is to draw the fire away from them. His eyes burned with a cold blue fire. We are going back to Seoul. And I am going to end this war tonight. The flight back to Seoul was different. There was no romance. No champagne. Minjun sat across from me, his laptop open, a headset on. He was commanding an army from 30,000 feet. Juno, lock down the estate. Call the council. Tell them I am invoking the blood oath. He paused, listening. I don't care if they are hesitant. Tell them I have the suitcase. The real one. And tell them I am coming for heads. I watched him, realizing I had never truly seen the mafia boss until now. The man who had charmed my mother and eaten pepper soup was gone. This was the predator. He took off the headset and rubbed his temples. He looked at me, and his eyes softened instantly. You should sleep, he said. I can't, I said, fiddling with the engagement ring. It felt heavier now. Minjun, what is in the suitcase? The real one. He looked at the black metal bag sitting strapped into the seat next to him. Not money, he said. Leverage. What kind of leverage? Evidence, he explained. My father kept records. Bribes, murders, corruption. Senators, judges, rival gang leaders. Everyone in Seoul is in that bag. That is why they want it. That is why they tried to kill you. And you're going to use it? I am going to release it, he said grimly. I am going to burn their entire world down. It will destroy my own organization too. The Kim Syndicate will fall. But that's your legacy, I whispered. Your empire. I don't want an empire, he said, reaching across the aisle to take my hand. I want a life. With you. I want to be able to sit on a porch and read a newspaper without a gun in my lap. I want to eat spicy soup and argue about logistics. He squeezed my hand. I am trading the crown for the girl, Wendy. It is an easy choice. We landed in Seoul at 4 a.m. The city was asleep, but the Kim estate was wide open. The driveway was lined with cars. Dozens of them. Men in suits stood in rows, bowing as our SUV pulled up. Minjun stepped out, carrying the suitcase. I walked beside him, holding my head high. I was terrified, yes, but I was done hiding. We walked into the main hall. It was filled with old men, the council, the other crime families of Seoul. The uncle who had threatened us was there, looking smug. Minjun, the uncle sneered. You return. And you brought the tourists back. I brought the queen back, Minjun corrected, his voice echoing in the silent hall. And I brought this. He slammed the suitcase onto the marble table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Open it, the uncle demanded. No, Minjun said. He pulled out a lighter. Gasps rippled through the room. This bag contains the death of everyone in this room, Minjun announced. Every bribe. Every body you buried. If I give it to the police, you all hang. And you hang with us, the uncle shouted. I am willing to burn, Minjun said calmly. Are you? Silence. What do you want? An old man in the back asked, his voice trembling. I want out, Minjun said. I want immunity. For me. For my fiancée. For her family. You will leave us alone. Forever. And in exchange? In exchange, Minjun flicked the lighter closed. I keep the bag closed. And I leave Seoul. The territory is yours. Fight over it. Kill each other for it. I don't care. The uncle stared at the suitcase. He stared at Minjun. He looked at the guards, realizing that Minjun's men were loyal only to him. If a fight started, it would be a massacre. Fine, the uncle spat. Go. But if you ever return to the underworld. I won't, Minjun said, grabbing my hand. I have better things to do. He picked up the suitcase. Wait, the uncle said. Leave the bag. I think not, Minjun smirked. Insurance. We turned around and walked out. We walked past the guards. Past the cars. Past the life Minjun had known since he was born. We walked out of the gates and into the cool morning mist of Seoul. Minjun didn't look back. We got into his car. Not the limo but a simple sports car. He tossed the suitcase into the back seat. Where are we going? I asked as he started the engine. The airport, he said, smiling. A real genuine smile that reached his eyes. I believe we have a honeymoon to plan. And I hear the Maldives is nice this time of year. The Maldives. I laughed, tears streaming down my face. What about my semester abroad? We can study anywhere, he said, intertwining his fingers with mine over the gearshift. As long as we are together. He looked at me one last time before peeling out onto the highway. Wrong suitcase, he murmured. Right, girl. I looked at the ring on my finger, then at the man who had burned down his kingdom just to hold my hand. Right guy, I agreed. And as the sun rose over the Han River, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, I realized that sometimes the biggest mistakes lead to the greatest adventures. I was Wendy Nelson, and I was going to be Mrs. Kim, but as I watched Seoul fade into the rearview mirror, I didn't know that the story wasn't over. The suitcase in the backseat wasn't just leverage. It was a beacon. And we weren't driving into the sunset. We were driving into a war. Part 2, Paradise Lost. 3 months later. The water in the Maldives was a color I didn't know existed. It wasn't just blue. It was a shifting, translucent turquoise that made the white sand beneath look like spun sugar. I sat on the deck of our private overwater villa. A book resting forgotten on my lap. The sun was warm on my skin. The breeze smelled of salt and frangipani. And somewhere in the distance a bird called out. It was paradise. It was perfection. And my husband was currently dismantling a Glock 19 on the patio table next to a pitcher of iced tea. Minjun, I sighed, lowering my sunglasses. We are on an island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. The closest neighbor is a turtle. Do you really need to clean the gun again? Minjun didn't look up. His hands moved with that mesmerizing, terrifying efficiency I had grown used to. Click, slide, snap. Salt air is bad for the mechanism, he said calmly. And we are not alone. The supply boat arrived this morning. Yes, with mangoes and toilet paper, I pointed out. Not assassins. He looked up then, his dark eyes scanning the horizon. Even in swim trunks and an unbuttoned linen shirt, he looked dangerous. The scars on his chest gleamed in the sunlight, a map of the violence he had survived to get us here. Complacency kills, Wendy, he said softly. I promised your father I would keep you safe. That promise does not expire because the view is pretty. I softened. I stood up and walked over to him, wrapping my arms around his neck from behind. I pressed a kiss to his shoulder, right over the jagged scar from the bullet he took for me in Seoul. You're retired, remember? I whispered against his skin. You're just Minjun now. The guy who likes spicy soup and hates sand. He turned in his chair, pulling me onto his lap. His hands, rough and calloused, rested possessively on my waist. I hate sand, he agreed, nuzzling into my neck. But I like you in a bikini. It is a fair trade. I laughed, swatting his arm. Is that all I am? I candy. You are my breath, he said, his voice dropping to that rough timbre that still made my toes curl. You are the reason I am not rotting in a shallow grave in Gangnam. You are everything. He kissed me then, deep and slow, tasting of iced tea and desire. For a moment the gun on the table was forgotten. The paranoia that lived in his spine relaxed. Then his phone buzzed. Not his regular phone. The encrypted satellite phone he kept buried in the bottom of the fruit bowl. Minjun froze against my lips. The tension slammed back into his body instantly, turning him from lover back to soldier. He pulled back, reaching for the phone. He answered it without saying a word. Speak. I watched his face. I saw the blood drain from his cheeks. I saw his jaw clench so hard a muscle feathered near his ear. How long? He asked. A pause. Understood. Initiate Protocol 0. He hung up. He looked at me, and the devastation in his eyes broke my heart. What? I whispered. Minjun, what is it? The uncle, he said, standing up and grabbing the gun. He didn't honor the deal. He sold the information about the suitcase to the Russian mob. They know we are here. Here? In the Maldives. They are 10 minutes out, Minjun said, already moving. He grabbed my hand. We have to go. Now. 10 minutes? Minjun, we're on an island. Where are we going to go? The boat, he said, dragging me toward the villa's entrance. Juno has a stealth boat docked on the north side. If we can make it to the open water, we can disappear. We ran. I left my book, my sunglasses, my shoes. We ran barefoot along the wooden walkway. The sun suddenly feeling scorching hot instead of warm. We reached the main path of the island just as the sound of engines cut through the peaceful afternoon. Not the supply boat. Speedboats. Fast, aggressive engines roaring toward the lagoon. Get down. Minjun shoved me into the dense jungle foliage that lined the path. We crouched in the dirt, the broad leaves of a banana tree shielding us. Through the gaps I saw them. 3 Zodiac boats beaching on the white sand. Men in tactical gear jumping out, rifles raised. They aren't here to talk, Minjun whispered, checking the clip in his gun. They are a cleanup crew. There are 12 of them. I counted, my voice shaking. You have 1 gun. I have 15 bullets, he corrected. And I have you. We have bad odds, but I have one with worse. He looked at me, cupping my face with his free hand. Windy, listen to me. We are going to crawl through the jungle to the north dock. It is about 500 meters. You stay behind me. If I shoot, you run. You do not look back. You get to the boat, you start the engine and you go. I'm not leaving you, I hissed. We did that already. Ride or die. Remember. This is not a movie, he snapped, his eyes wild with fear for me. If they catch me, they kill me. If they catch you, they will do things that make death look like a mercy. You run. Promise me. I didn't promise. I just gripped his hand. Let's move. We moved through the jungle like ghosts. The heat was suffocating. Mosquitoes buzzed in my ears, but I didn't dare sweat them. Every snap of a twig sounded like a gunshot. We were halfway to the north dock when we ran into the patrol. 2 men, speaking Russian, walking down the narrow dirt path. They were between us and the boat. Minjun signaled for me to stop. He handed me the gun. What are you doing? I mouthed. He pulled a knife from his ankle holster. I didn't even know he was wearing an ankle holster, and pointed to the gun. Cover me. He disappeared into the bushes. I held the gun, my heart hammering so hard I thought the Russians would hear it. I watched them walk closer. They were relaxed, laughing, their rifles slung over their shoulders. They didn't think there was any threat. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the tree line. Minjun moved with terrifying speed. He grabbed the first man from behind, covering his mouth and driving the knife into his neck. The man dropped silently. The second man spun around, raising his rifle. Minjun lunged, but he was too far away. The Russian's finger tightened on the trigger. Bang! The shot didn't come from the Russian. It came from me. I stood up from the bushes, the Glock smoking in my hand. The Russian crumpled to the ground, a hole in his chest. Minjun looked at the dead man, then at me. He looked shocked. I told you, I said, my voice trembling as I lowered the gun. I'm not leaving you. And I practiced while you were sleeping. Minjun didn't smile. He rushed over, grabbing the rifles from the dead men. He tossed one to me. Safety is on the right, he said. We made noise. The rest will be coming. Run. We sprinted. The jungle blurred around us. Shouts erupted from the beach. They had heard the gunshot. Bullets started shredding the leaves around us. Thwip 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 sounds that were far too close. The dock. Minjun shouted, pointing. I saw it. A wooden pier jutting out into the ocean. A sleek black powerboat was tied there, bobbing in the waves. We burst out of the tree line onto the sand. Go. Start the engine. Minjun yelled, turning around and dropping to one knee. He raised his rifle, aiming back at the jungle. I scrambled onto the dock, my bare feet slipping on the hot wood. I jumped into the boat, fumbling for the keys. Juno had said they were always under the mat. I found them. I jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. Minjun! I screamed. He was firing into the trees, suppressing the men chasing us. He stood up, backing toward the dock, firing controlled bursts. Then I saw the sniper. On the roof of the supply shed, a man was taking aim. Minjun. Roof. Minjun spun, but he was a fraction of a second too late. The sniper fired. Minjun's body jerked violently. He collapsed onto the sand, clutching his thigh. No! I screamed. I didn't think. I didn't calculate. I slammed the throttle forward, but I didn't steer out to sea. I steered the boat toward the beach. Windy, no. Minjun shouted, trying to drag himself toward the water. Go. I ran the boat aground, the hull screeching against the sand. I grabbed the rifle and jumped out, spraying bullets toward the roof. The sniper ducked. I grabbed Minjun by his vest, hauling him up. He was heavy dead weight, his leg bleeding profusely. Get up. I grunted, adrenaline giving me strength I didn't know I had. Get in the boat. He groaned, gritting his teeth, and scrambled over the gunwale, falling onto the deck. I jumped in after him, shoving the throttle to the max. Bullets pinged off the hull, sparks flying. The windshield shattered. But the engines roared and the boat surged forward, carving a white path through the turquoise water. We sped away, leaving the island and the assassins behind. I steered us toward the open ocean until the island was just a speck. Then I cut the engines. Minjun. I dropped to my knees beside him. He was pale, his skin clammy. The bullet had gone through his thigh. There was so much blood. You came back, he whispered, his eyes unfocused. You stupid, stubborn woman. You came back. I told you, I sobbed, ripping the hem of my shirt to make a tourniquet. I'm the wife of a mafia boss. I don't run. He reached up, his bloody hand cupping my cheek. He smiled, weak but genuine. No, he murmured, his eyes closing. You are the mafia boss now. Part 3. The Empress. 1 year later. The boardroom in Seoul was silent. The long mahogany table was occupied by 12 men. The council. The same men who had sneered at me a year ago. The same men who had sent assassins to the Maldives. They weren't sneering now. They were sweating. I sat at the head of the table. I wasn't wearing a floral dress or jeans. I was wearing a tailored black suit, my hair pulled back in sleek braids. On my finger the sapphire ring gleamed. On the table in front of me sat the black metal suitcase. And standing behind me, leaning on a cane but looking as lethal as ever, was Minjun. Gentlemen, I said, my voice calm. I didn't need to shout. I had learned that true power is quiet. We have a problem. Someone in this room tried to kill my husband. Again. The uncle shifted in his seat. Wendy. Mrs. Kim. It was a misunderstanding. Rogue elements. Rogue elements, I repeated. I opened the suitcase. I pulled out a single file. I slid it down the table. It stopped right in front of the uncle. This file, I said, contains the GPS logs of the boat that attacked us. It was paid for by a shell company registered in your name, Director Choi. The uncle went pale. That is fabricated. Minjun tapped his cane on the floor. Click. The doors opened. Juno walked in, followed by 4 new guards. They surrounded the uncle. My wife does not fabricate, Minjun said, his voice raspy but strong. She investigates. And she executes. I stood up. The Kim Syndicate is under new management. Minjun is retired. He advises. But I leaned forward, placing my hands on the table. I am the one you have to deal with. And unlike my husband, I have no sentimental attachment to any of you. I looked at Juno. Remove Director Choi. Permanently. No. You can't. Choi screamed as he was dragged away. She is a foreigner. She is a girl. She cannot lead us. I am not a girl, I said to the room of terrified men. I am the woman who dragged your king out of a war zone. I am the woman who kept this empire alive while he recovered. I am Mrs. Kim. I sat back down. Now, let us discuss the quarterly earnings. I believe we are down 3%. The meeting continued. No one spoke out of turn. No one looked at me with disrespect. Later that night, back at the estate, Minjun found me on the balcony. He wrapped his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. You were terrifying today, he whispered. Was I? I leaned back into him. I learned from the best. I think you scared them more than I ever did, he laughed softly. My uncle looked like he saw a ghost. He saw justice, I said. I turned in his arms, careful of his leg. He still walked with a limp, a permanent reminder of the Maldives. But he was alive. He was here. Are you happy? He asked, searching my face. This life. It is heavy. It is dark. It's our life, I said. And we changed it. We stopped the drug running. We stopped the trafficking. We made it legitimate. Mostly. Mostly, he smirked. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something. Not a gun. Not a diamond. A tiny pair of baby shoes. I froze. I stared at the shoes, then at him. Min-jun. I found them in your drawer, he said, his eyes shining with a vulnerability I rarely saw. And I counted the weeks. And I noticed you stopped drinking wine at dinner. Tears filled my eyes. I was going to tell you tonight. After the meeting. He dropped the shoes and pulled me into a crushing hug, burying his face in my neck. I felt his shoulders shake. A baby, he whispered. We are going to have a baby. Are you ready? I asked, stroking his hair. To be a dad? To protect someone else? He pulled back, framing my face with his hands. I have protected an empire. I have protected you. But this. He placed a hand on my stomach. This is the only thing that matters. This child will never know the fear we knew. They will never know the sound of a gunshot. They will only know power. And love. He kissed me and it felt like a promise. A new contract written not in blood or ink but in hope. I love you, Mrs. Kim, he said. I love you, Mr. Kim, I replied. We stood on the balcony, looking out over the city of Seoul. The lights glittered like diamonds below us. It was our city now. Our kingdom. We had started with a wrong suitcase. We had survived assassins, kidnappings, and betrayal. We had walked through fire and come out the other side not just survivors but rulers. And as I felt Min-jun's hand on my stomach and the city humming below us, I knew one thing for sure. This was exactly the right suitcase.